A poor girl, an impossible task, and a terrible bargain. In the end, only a name can save her. We think of Rumpelstiltskin as a children's tale, a strange little man who spins straw into gold. But what if I told you this story holds something much older? Older than the Brothers Grimm, older than castles and cathedrals, older even than writing itself. Because hidden beneath the layers of this bedtime story is a secret, one that stretches back over 4,000 years. And once you hear it, you'll never look at this tale the same way again. Welcome back, Darklings. Before we uncover its secrets, let's begin with the most well-known version of the tale. But listen closely, because hidden in this strange little story are echoes of something far more ancient. Once there was a poor miller who longed to impress the king, so he told a lie. He claimed that his daughter could spin straw into gold. The king, greedy for wealth, had the girl brought to his castle. He locked her in a room filled with straw and demanded she prove it by morning, or die. The girl was terrified. She had no idea how to spin straw into anything, let alone gold. She wept, and then, just before midnight, the door creaked open. A strange little man stepped inside. He offered to help, but only for a price. First her necklace, then her ring. Each night the straw was spun into shining gold, and each morning the king demanded more. On the third night, with nothing left to offer, the little man made a terrible bargain. He would help her one last time, in exchange for her firstborn child. Trapped and desperate, she agreed. By morning the straw had turned to gold once more. The king was so pleased he took the girl as his queen. A year passed. She gave birth to a beautiful child and forgot all about the bargain, until one night the little man returned. He had come to collect. The queen was horrified. She offered him wealth, land, anything he desired. But the little man shook his head. He said, "Something living is dearer to me than all the treasures of the world." And yet, perhaps moved by her sorrow, he made her one final offer. If she could guess his name within 3 days, she could keep the child. She tried every name she knew. She sent out messengers across the land to find more. But no matter what she guessed, the answer was always wrong. Until the third day. One of her messengers returned with a curious tale. Deep in the woods, beyond the fox's den, he had seen a fire, and a tiny figure dancing around it, singing. "Today I'll bake, tomorrow I'll brew, then I'll fetch the queen's new child too. It's good that no one knows my game, because Rumpelstiltskin is my name." That night, when the little man came again, the queen spoke the name. "Rumpelstiltskin." He froze. His eyes widened. He screamed, "Who told you? Who told you?" Stamping so hard he sank into the earth. And in some versions, he tore himself in two. This is the version recorded by the Brothers Grimm in 1812. But contrary to popular belief, the Grimms didn't write fairy tales. They were collectors of folklore, stories passed down via word of mouth across generations. And Rumpelstiltskin was just one of many. The Grimms were one of the first to write these tales down, preserving them before they vanished, and Jacob Grimm firmly believed that many of them were far older than people realised, ancient, in fact, handed down from a time before history. And it turns out, he may have been right. In 2016, a team of researchers from Durham University and the New University of Lisbon set out to test it, using evolutionary biology techniques. They treated folk tales like living organisms, tracing how certain story patterns evolved and spread over time. By comparing thousands of tales across different cultures and languages, they essentially built a family tree for folklore. And what they found was remarkable. The tale we know as Rumpelstiltskin falls under a story category known as the name of the supernatural helper, and it's now believed to be over 4,000 years old. Now that doesn't mean this exact version is from the Bronze Age, but what it does mean is the story structure, the impossible task, the magical helper, the secret name, occurs again and again throughout cultures and time. Different names, different settings, but always the same skeleton. So why does this pattern echo across so many cultures? And what exactly are we remembering? Let's begin with the act of spinning itself. In folklore, spinning is everywhere. Sleeping Beauty pricks her finger on a spindle, and of course, the miller's daughter spins straw into gold. But to the ancients, spinning wasn't just domestic work, it was cosmic. In Greek mythology, the fates spun the thread of life for every human being. From birth to death, the length of your life, the moment of your final breath, all of it was thought to be spun, measured and cut by these three sisters. But it wasn't just the Greeks. In Norse mythology, the Norns sat at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, spinning the fates of gods and men alike. And in the ancient Vedic tradition, the very fabric of reality was described as a vast, golden woven tapestry, golden threads stretching across the cosmos, binding all things together. Thread wasn't just a metaphor for life, it was life. And gold? Gold symbolized more than wealth. It stood for divinity, purity, even immortality. So spinning straw into gold isn't just a magic trick, it's the reshaping of the mundane into the divine. In later centuries, this idea became known as alchemy, the mystical art of turning base matter into something higher. We tend to associate alchemy with the medieval image, bearded men trying to turn lead into gold in smoky laboratories. But older than that is the idea of alchemy, not just as a physical process, but as a spiritual one, a transformation of the soul, of fate, of the very nature of reality. So when we look at Rumpelstiltskin through that lens, he's not just spinning thread, he's performing cosmic work. And some believe that's no coincidence, that stories like this are not just metaphors, but echoes of a time when such knowledge was real and feared. But where did that knowledge come from in the first place? And why, in so many versions of the tale, does it come at such a terrible cost? It's now believed that the name of the supernatural helper, the story category Rumpelstiltskin belongs to, may date back over 4,000 years to the dawn of the Bronze Age. This was a turning point in human history. For the first time, people learned how to take two ordinary metals, copper and tin, and fuse them into something new, bronze. Imagine being a Bronze Age villager. One day a stranger arrives, cloaked in soot, eyes gleaming, and in his hands, metal. A blade that cuts through stone, a tool that reshapes the world. To you, he's no man. He's a god. The ability to pull metal from stone and reshape it with fire was seen as a supernatural act, and those who held this knowledge, the Metalworkers, were revered and feared. They were seen as keepers of a secret too powerful to be entirely human. And this is where it gets even stranger. Because many ancient cultures didn't claim to discover metalworking at all, they said it was given to them. The Book of Enoch, once considered scripture, tells of the Watchers, divine beings who descended from the heavens and taught humanity forbidden arts, including forging metal. Even in the Bible, we find Tubal-Cain, a forger of all instruments of bronze and iron, and across the ancient world this theme repeats. In Sumeria, Kothar-Wakasis built temples for the gods. Among the Hittites, Hasameli worked behind veils of steam and fire. The Norse told of dwarves crafting Thor's hammer deep underground, and the Slavs spoke of Svarog, god of fire and creation. These figures were always the same type, elusive, powerful, never fully human. They lived in mountains, spoke strange tongues, and vanished as mysteriously as they came, just like our spinning little man. But what does Rumpelstiltskin want? Not gold, not a kingdom, but a child. Why? In every version of this story, he never explains. Only once does he offer a clue. Something living is dearer to me than all the treasures of the world. We're never told why he wants the child, and perhaps that's the point. It's possible the original meaning was far darker than later versions could bear, so the reason was left unsaid, softened over time for little ears. Because in the ancient world, offering the firstborn child to the gods was the ultimate gift, the ultimate price. Of course, to us today it seems unthinkable, but in the ancient world, sacrifice wasn't always about cruelty. It was about offering up what was most precious in exchange for something divine. In the Bible, God tests Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his son, Isaac. And in ancient Carthage and parts of the Levant, archaeologists have uncovered burial sites filled with the bones of infants. Many believe these were offerings, sacrifices to gods like Moloch or Baal. It seems that when people sought divine help, real, impossible help, the cost was often the same, a child. And that raises a disturbing question. Rumpelstiltskin isn't killed. He's not banished by magic. He's defeated by something else entirely, by speaking his name. This part of the tale may be the most ancient of all, the belief that names have power. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs, considered divine, had not just a birth name, but a secret name to protect their soul. This hidden name had to be carved into tombs, temples, and sacred texts, because without it, the pharaoh would cease to exist in the afterlife, not just forgotten, but erased from eternity itself. In Kabbalistic and Islamic mysticism, the names of God aren't just labels. They are believed to hold the essence of creation, too sacred to speak aloud, too powerful to use lightly. Simply knowing one of these names was said to shape reality, alter fate, or unlock divine truth. And in the Bible, Solomon is portrayed as the wise and wealthy son of David, king of ancient Israel around the 10th century BC. He builds the first temple in Jerusalem using the finest materials of the ancient world, a sacred place said to house the Ark of the Covenant. But in later mystical texts, his story takes a darker, stranger turn. One of these writings, a shadowy text known as the Testament of Solomon, tells us something different. It claims Solomon was given a magical ring engraved with a divine seal, a ring that grants him the power to summon demons. One by one, he calls them forth, and each time he asks a single question: "What is your name?" Because once Solomon knows it, he controls them. He commands them to build the temple, to bring gold, to do his bidding. And that's because in ancient belief, a name wasn't just a label. It was a code, a key, a hidden map of a being's nature, their origin, their power, their weakness. To speak a true name was to unlock something. It was like accessing the source code of the soul, a spiritual blueprint that gave you control over the being. So when the girl in our story learns Rumpelstiltskin's name, not just any name, but perhaps his true name, she isn't just speaking a word. She's breaking the spell. She's cracking the code. She's doing what Solomon did. Of course, the names in these stories have changed over time. Rumpelstiltskin itself is a bit of German wordplay. It means little rattlestilt. It's a strange name, almost mechanical. Some believe it refers to how he moves, or the clattering sound of his work. But across dozens of cultures and variations, one thing stays the same. The helper's name is always strange, alien, not of this world, and that's more than just a fairy tale quirk. It may be the echo of something we once believed, that gods, spirits, and supernatural beings spoke a different kind of language, a sacred tongue, a divine language. In ancient Indo-European tradition, divine beings don't speak the way we do. They sing, they chant. Their words follow rhythms and patterns, like riddles, that humans can't fully grasp. Which is interesting, because in almost every version of Rumpelstiltskin, the helper's secret name is revealed the same way, through a riddle, a chant, a song around the fire. And this divine speech, it was believed to hold enormous power. Think about the book of Genesis. How does God create the world? He speaks. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light, no chisels, no fire, no tools, just words. Speech, not action, becomes the tool of creation. And it's not just the Bible. In ancient Egypt, the god Ptah creates the world not by shaping it, but by speaking it into existence. In these traditions, language isn't just communication, it's a power source, a way to bend reality. So what was Rumpelstiltskin? A trickster? A demon? A forgotten god? Or perhaps a memory of the first metalworkers, the firebringers, the keepers of secrets, of beings who offered help for a terrible price? We think of Rumpelstiltskin as a fairy tale for children, but his strange, inhuman name, his power to spin gold, his demand for the firstborn, these aren't just fantasy. They echo real beliefs from the ancient world, of gods who worked in fire, of beings who spoke in riddles, of rituals and secret names that could bind the supernatural. So perhaps this tale isn't fiction, but a memory, a distorted echo of a time when such beings walked among us. And maybe they still do. But if you thought that was strange, wait until you hear the truth behind Jack and the Beanstalk. Click here to watch it now, if you dare. See you in a future video.